All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Charlie Miner, Mayor of Lawn Lake. Appreciate you joining us tonight. It's a beautiful night outside. I think it's 72 degrees and sunny. I understand there's a basketball game starting here in a few minutes, so hopefully we can keep most of your attention for the foreseeable future. So this is the Fire Services Joint Open Forum, co-hosted by the cities of Lawn Lake and the cities of Orono. We'd like to thank Trinity Lutheran Church for hosting us for this event this evening. Also, this event is being filmed by the Lake Minnetonka Communications Commission. So we'd like to thank their staff for filming this tonight. It will be available on YouTube on the LMCC channel in the near future. So this is Lawn Lake has had 3 different forums like this in recent years at Calvin Presbyterian Church, and we're very excited tonight to be actually co-hosting this event, as I mentioned, with the city of Orono. It's taken a while to get here for Lawn Lake, and we very much appreciate sitting at the same table with our Orono colleagues here this evening. I'd like to start off by just identifying some of my fellow Lawn Lake council members that are present tonight, as well as some of our staff. Councilmember John Dyvek here to my left. Councilmember Deirdre Kowali is here. Councilmember Mike Feldman and Councilmember Todd Newcomer are all present. Also, our City Administrator Scott Wesky is here, and our Lawn Lake Fire Chief is here, as well as several members of the Lawn Lake Fire Department, and I believe the Orono Fire Department as well. So we most appreciate the firefighters being in the room this evening. Thank you for coming, and thank you for your service. And also, we have some representatives from other cities here tonight as well. From Medina, we have Councilmember Dino Delorier here. And for Minnetonka Beach, we have Mayor Joe Pagano and Councilmember Jennifer Halverson. So thank you for joining us as well. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor Tunheim.
All right, thank you, Charlie. I'd like to introduce a few of my fellow council members as well, including to my right, Steve Persian. Steve has been a wonderful new member of our council and has been involved in the fire negotiating team. Having been a firefighter and a volunteer fire chief, his insights and knowledge have been really valuable in this process. We also have 2 other council members here, I think just 2, Elisa Benson and Jacqueline Ricks. Please identify yourselves. And is Claire Barrett here? I don't believe I've seen her, but anyway, and our administrator, Adam Edwards, is here as well, along with several other of our staff. So welcome, everybody. As Charlie mentioned, we do have to apologize that we ended up scheduling this on a night when the Timberwolves are playing a playoff game. But if anybody else out there is as big a fan as I am, you'll know that they always start slow. So we're just saving you from maybe another slow start, but hopefully it's a win tonight. I also want to acknowledge that this has been a difficult and emotional issue for our community. And we're not here tonight to rehash what we've gone through over the last 3 or 4 years. We are here to talk about the future. And so in your comments and your questions, hopefully you're geared toward the future and not toward relitigating the past, because we'd really like to put that behind us and heal as a community. So hopefully you'll help us do that. I would, however, be remiss if I didn't recognize our firefighters, many of whom are here tonight, as Mayor Miner pointed out. They did not ask to be in the middle of a political battle. But yet they performed their jobs well. They kept our community safe, and for that I think they deserve a nice round of applause. Thank you very much. As I've talked to members of our community, including firefighters, it was clear to me that no one was advocating having 2 separate fire departments. It's in everyone's best interest to have a single department that delivers top-notch public safety. And I hope you will hear tonight our plan. Well, we will be explaining our plans tonight for how we do that, how we get back to one fire department serving our community and delivering top-notch public safety. So with that, I would turn it back over to Charlie to go through our presentation.
All right, thank you, Bob. So where are we at today? What are the current challenges facing fire service in our communities? For starters, we are in a contract. So just a little quick history lesson is that cities of Long Lake, Orono, and Medina are in a joint contract for fire services that dates back to 2002. And that contract is ending at the end of the year. So it's been a long run. It's been worked fairly well the last 20 plus years, but it's coming to an end. So we need to plan for the future. We need to figure out what's going to occur once the contract ends here. So that's been step one. We've spent a lot of time, the four of us have gotten to know each other very well the last 3 or 4 months, meeting on a regular basis, trying to figure that out. So tonight we believe we sort of have that piece figured out. Now we want to talk about what's going to happen in 2026 and beyond. Item 2 there, equipment costs are rising and existing capital plan is underfunded. So the cost of fire trucks and fire vehicles, for example, has gone up immensely in, I would say, the last 5 years since COVID. It's not unusual for a fire engine to cost over $1 million now. If you want a ladder truck is $2 million or more. Crazy amounts of money. Both fire departments, both cities have what are essentially large Ford pickup trucks on order that are rescue vehicles that are anywhere from $250,000 to $400,000, just fully equipped. So incredible amounts of money need to be spent and are being spent on fire vehicles really across the nation, not just here. And the capital plan for those purchases has been underfunded through the current contract. As Mayor Thunheim said, we're not going to go back and rehash past history here, but there's some things that led to that. And now we have to kind of build up that capital going forward. That relates to number 3 there. Capital equipment is aging and needs replacement. Both cities have been purchasing vehicles on our own for the last couple of years. And in some cases, we've ordered the exact same thing. We've pretty much, one fire department's copied the other fire department on the order spec and gone and ordered the same thing. And that doesn't make any sense in most cases. There's some duplication going on. So we've been working together to address that. But at the same time, we need to fund our capital funds better. We're not necessarily going to save money long term with this. I think we'll get into that a little bit more, but all of our cities should be spending more money on fire service. We've been talking about that as Long Lake for the last many years, and I know Orono has as well. So it's not public safety is really, to me, is the most important thing that our local governments provide for our residents, and we need to be sure we do that as cities. So that's been a challenge. Number 4, there are smaller departments challenged to meet increasing regulations. Being firefighting 40, 50 years ago is a lot different than today. There's any firefighter will tell you that cancer rates are high among firefighters. Very important to keep our firefighters safe. There's fire stations in our area here that are not really built to today's standards. You're not supposed to have turnout gear lockers in the same bay that you park the trucks and things like that because you're worrying about exhausts. And there's more regulations on the horizon. OSHA at the federal level is proposing many changes to fire regulations that impact local fire departments, and those could be immensely expensive down the road. So all of these reasons, and then I guess one more is that maybe we didn't put up here, is just the staffing challenges. It's maybe a new number 5 there, is that back in the old days, maybe when you turned 18, your dad grabbed load up the pickup truck and said, we're going down to the fire station and signed you up, you're going to be a firefighter now. And it's kind of a duty that was a duty that you had to serve that way in communities. And those folks are not showing up to be firefighters as much as they used to. Thankfully, we have many members of our community that are willing to do that, but it's a challenge, whether it's police officers, firefighters. Not that many people are stepping forward to do that anymore, so having redundant fire departments is not a good idea from that perspective alone. So that's why all of this really points to consolidation and not isolation, and why we're coming together now to address that issue for the long term.
Okay, so What I'm going to talk a little bit about is some of the steps that we've taken, the interim arrangement, so to speak. Most of you are frankly aware of some of those steps, up to and including signing the First Amendment. The reality is the politicians have come to an agreement and gotten out of the way of the firefighters and the department's ability to work together. And frankly, I wish it would have been quicker, but I'm learning that things take a little more time. The departments are training and responding to incidents together, sharing equipment and facilities. Also, in the spirit of working together, the councils are committed to settling the outstanding litigation between the cities before signing the joint powers agreement. Simply put, we are better together, and these initial steps demonstrate increased cooperation between the cities and firefighters and should act as the basis for long-term collaboration and partnership. So where are we headed? With our joint powers agreement, our plan is consolidation. It's to take the best of each department, including the firefighters, leadership, equipment, and operations, and bring it forward in a planned manner to our communities through the creation of a new fire department. Excuse me. It also includes developing a model that's flexible, sustainable, and allows for growth. It will be a model that delivers a wide variety of important fire services and has an organizational structure that aims to deliver exceptional services to our communities. Looking at other similar communities, this will include full-time, part-time, and paid on-call firefighters. All that said, I can summarize these couple slides and ask you to remember two things, and I have two requests. First, I'm thrilled that we've taken the first step to restore our relationship, and I'm excited to take the next step with our neighboring cities. My request, please positively join us along that journey. Second, and more importantly, remember that our firefighters are our greatest value. My request, please always give them the respect and gratitude they deserve as they serve our community. Now I'll turn it over to Bob to talk about some key elements of our future department.
Thanks, Steve. Just a couple things I want to mention here. As it mentioned earlier, joint powers agreement. We are working on that. It is a document that will be between the member cities, Long Lake, Orono, hopefully Medina, to formalize our cooperation on this important issue. It outlines the level of service to be provided to ensure that the new department meets all of the expectations of our community for the quality of service, as well as government guidelines, including OSHA standards that are going up, along with state and local ordinances, and of course best practices that we observe from other departments. This will be governed by it will be an independent fire department that's governed by a board that's going to be named by the member cities. And one of the elements of that we've negotiated is, as long as Orono is paying over 50% of the cost of the department, Orono will get no less than 50% representation on the board. I've been a business lawyer for over 37 years, and I've consistently counseled my clients to avoid having even-numbered boards. And here we're talking about an even-numbered board to avoid deadlocks, obviously. But I like that here because it's going to encourage us to cooperate and get together, make decisions that are in everyone's best interest. And so the size and the constitution of the board will depend on which member cities are involved. If it's just Long Lake and Orono, it's probably a 4-person board with 2 members from Orono, 2 from Long Lake. If Medina chooses to stay with, stay as a member, it would be probably a 6-person board. 3 from Orono, 2 from Long Lake, 1 from Medina. All of that has yet to be decided, but the point is it will be a board that will have operating authority over staffing, budgeting, equipment, service levels, you name it. They will be in charge. They will have the authority here. And so that's how this new fire department will be governed. The fourth point here, which I think cannot be underestimated, is we're going to select a new name for the department. It's not going to be the Long Lake Fire Department. It's not going to be the Orono Fire Department. It's not going to be the Long Lake / Orono Department. It is going to be a new name, and it's going to represent a broader community that we are serving here, and it will also be welcoming to other communities that want to join us. So I think that's really, really an important step to be taking here. So we move on to the implementation plan. Like I said, we're drafting the Joint Powers Agreement. Our goal is to have that approved by July 1. We believe we can do that. We had for those of you that saw what we passed with respect to the amendment, we had a term sheet attached to that had the terms of that Joint Powers Agreement that have largely been hammered out. So we think that goal is perfectly attainable. It will fit into our budgeting cycles, and that's what we are striving for, is a July 1 signing date. We're also, skipped one ahead, but we're also defining the department's structure, standards, and equipment needs. That work has already begun. We have not yet selected a board. Obviously, that would come a little bit later. But once that board is named, they will start developing budgets, capital operational plans, including department leadership, and all of which would lead us to hopefully being fully operational by January 1, 2026. So it's a relatively compressed time frame, but we believe we can do it during that time frame, and it's based on our experience in negotiating. I have full confidence that we will get to that point so that we're ready to go by January 1, which coincides obviously with the end of the current contract. So with that, I will turn it back over to Charlie to talk about governance and accountability.
All right, thank you, Bob. Bob covered some of these bullets already, but just a few highlights is we talked about the board being appointed by partner cities. Minnetonka Beach is maybe we accidentally overlooked them, but they're obviously a partner in us now, and we hope that they'll continue to be a partner as well. It's kind of a let's build it and they will come kind of a philosophy that we've been having, and we're hoping that what we're doing here is unique. We'll talk about some things in a few slides that are maybe different than how some other cities and jurisdictions operate their fire service. And we're hoping that this is a model that's very attractive to other communities that are around us outside of our current four partner cities. Service levels will be clearly established. So there's lots of services provided by fire departments and firefighters. Back in the old days, fire departments were there to put out fires. That was about it. And other duties, medical duties were handled elsewhere and by paramedics and that type of thing. And they didn't do inspections. And just the world of firefighting has changed, as you might imagine, over time. So they're called on a lot now. A lot of their, I think 70% or so of the calls that firefighters go to are medical calls, including things like lift assist as their population ages. And so, the board will be determining what are those services provided by the fire department. Some fire departments are looking more and more at EMS and paramedic services. There's a big kind of a debate about this going on down south in the Excelsior Fire District area about it takes a long time for an ambulance to come out from HCMC, sometimes from downtown Minneapolis. They may start up their own paramedic service at some point, and that could be something to look at here too. And not saying that that's going to happen, but just a concept of establishing those services. What services do we want as a community, and how do we go about providing those services? That'll be a key aspect of this. Leadership accountable to the board. Bob mentioned that. So the fire chief will be accountable to the board. The fire chief will not report to the city of Orono, will not report to the city of Long Lake. It'll report to this board, which is made up of representatives from both cities. Bob already covered the board representation kind of aspect of the situation and how it'll start, and that could evolve over time. If more partner cities join, those kind of numbers could be adjusted. As we look at to the south, as Long Lake, we've admired the Excelsior Fire District for many years. They have a 25-year-old roughly fire district now that's made up of 5 cities. Each city has one representative on the board, one city council member on the board, and I'm told that works well. It's something to look at there. But the point is there are successful models around us, and there's more in the works. The cities of Mound, or West, St. Bonifacius, Minnetrista, Spring Park, they're having very active discussions as well about creating a fire district amongst their 4 cities. Right now there's the St. Bonifacius and there's the Mound Fire Department. There's talk about merging those 2 together to have a larger fire department, and that's great to see that occurring because there's strength in numbers, and that's kind of what we're getting at tonight. A couple of years ago, the Loretto and Hamel fire departments merged to create the West Suburban Fire District. That's currently a private organization. We'll see what happens in the future with that. They serve several cities, but it's happening all around us, and we want to be able to keep up with the times as they evolve. And then lastly, their transparent performance review process and mutual aid participation. So that's just ensuring again that we're providing quality services, that our staff are providing quality services, and by having more oversight from a larger group of cities, we hope that will aid with that. And the mutual aid participation, no fire department around here, even your Minnetonkas and your Plymouths can do it alone. Firefighters will tell you they get paged all the time to go assist their brothers and sisters in other local fire departments. So it'll be important for our new department here to have great partnerships with our surrounding cities. And we want to help them, and we want them to come help us as well when we're in a time when our firefighters are in a time of need. Okay, next.
So whenever there's 2 cities or more that share a fire department for services, you have to have a way to share the cost. And so you would have a formula that would be a function of maybe just property values in some cases, a combination of property value and call volume in other cases, and then also in some cases it might have a third element to include population. And the percentages of those might vary. There's no set rule on how that should be done. On the current contract that we have from 2002, the formula was based on 70% property value and 30% call volume. There was, even though as I said, there's no set rule in the League of Minnesota Cities or elsewhere, but in the League of Minnesota Cities website, there is an example that they use where they do a one-third between property value, call volume, and population. And we thought that was fair to apply that for the new JPA. It would be a little bit of a benefit to Orono because it would bring their percentage of the cost down, but with the population of their city being 4 times Long Lakes, it's not going to make a big difference, but we felt that it was more fair, and Charlie and I actually were bringing this up with the previous administration that we'd be willing to do this. So we think that this is fair, and I think Orono agrees. So that's what we're planning to do. And then next slide. So as you heard, capital equipment has been a challenge. I think it's a challenge for any small volunteer fire department because of the rising costs and because we were previously underfunded, and the way the funding was done wasn't the best. Going forward, there's actually going to be a fund that all the cities will put annually money into, so that there's going to be that fund that will exist, rather than being, well, you owe this much from the last 3 years and you owe this much. Having an actual fund is going to be a better way to go. But as also was mentioned, in the last couple of years, Orono has bought some equipment, Long Lake has bought some equipment on their own, and so now we're going to bring all that together. We're going to see what's redundant, what's the best of the equipment that is going to be kept, and the administrators from both cities are going through this exercise, as well as our leadership in the fire department. And And then what we don't need, we'll sell. And the money from those sales, from those proceeds, will go into the capital budget to sort of be a seed, some seed funding prior to us then establishing a annual contribution to that fund. And that annual contribution will be based on what the capital plan calls for. We'll look at a 10-year plan or whatever, however many years would make sense. And then we can say, well, okay, we need to have all the cities put in their percentage based on the formula, again, that I shared on the last slide, so that we would put that annually into that, to that fund so that we'd be properly funded going forward. I think starting out, we'd actually have some pretty newer equipment actually coming in to this new department from the shared equipment that's been recently purchased. But also to have a plan and have that well funded, that's what we're going to do.
Great, thanks. Thanks, John. Oops, I went too far. Where do we want to go? Future goals. This is kind of the fun part, imagining and envisioning where the future of our emergency services might go. And really, this is an exercise in emulating what's been done well elsewhere, anticipating what the future of emergency services is going to be. And there's many factors that are driving consolidation around the country. I think Mayor Miner went through a number of those in an earlier slide. The cost of equipment, the redundancy of having every department buy the same equipment when that equipment can be shared, and really the dwindling number of people that are willing to serve as volunteer firefighters. So we really want this JPA to be the first step in envisioning what can be for not just our community, but a broader community of maybe some of our neighboring towns. So we want this to be expandable. We want it to be welcoming to neighboring communities and departments. We want it to be forward-thinking. And we've talked a bit about this, but we're not quite ready to go as far as to form an actual fire district with taxing authority. But that's on the table for future discussion, particularly if neighboring communities are interested in doing that. And what that would mean is, instead of getting a property tax bill that shows how much you're paying your city, out of which the fire budget would be paid, it would be a separate line that would say, here's what we're paying for fire services to our district. And then that number would presumably be lessened from the amount that you get charged from your city. So again, we're not quite there, but I think we can see that is a direction that a lot of fire services is going. The state legislature has made it easier to do that through legislation that was passed a couple of years ago. So that is on the table. It's not what we're envisioning for January 1, but it is on the table for future consideration. So we'd love some feedback about that as we move forward. And I guess I will turn it back over to Charlie for our final slide.
Thank you. All right, so yeah, we kind of went through those slides, a little half hour or so. We didn't want to overwhelm you with slides or anything. There's a lot of moving pieces here, but we'd love to get your feedback. If there's anyone who wants to give feedback on, most of our city councils are here tonight. We're going to be making these decisions in the coming months and years. It'd be great to get any feedback you have on that. We're going to time your comments. Just ask, we're not going to make a big deal about it, but just try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less for those of you who want to step forward. And appreciate you stating your name and what city you're from if you step forward. And it's always hardest to get the first person to do that. If anybody wants to do it, now it sounds. Oh, thank you. Okay. And yeah, I'm sorry, if you'd step up to the mic. I failed to mention there's a microphone back there. Yes, thank you. Approach that.
Hello. I'm Liz Levang. I was a former Orono resident. I lived there for 35 years. I was also on the city council. My question is a historical one, is about the Chevy Chase area. We know that in 2016, that area came back to Orono, the Long Lake Orono Fire Department, but it was prior to that, since about 1965, Wayzata was responsible for providing fire service. I'd like to know what you're thinking about that today. And part of the reason is that Long Lake takes longer to get to that area, and I would like to see you return to Wayzata so that those people in that area of the city get faster service. As we all know, it takes seconds, a person's life. And I don't appreciate the fact that it takes over 8 minutes, at least that was the record, to get there from Long Lake, where it would take about 6 minutes from Wayzata. So I'd like your comments about that. Thank you.
So I'll address that. We had a work session a few weeks back, and one of the comments that was discussed was some of the changes in fire coverage over the years, up to including taking areas away from Maple Plain, moving them into Long Lake, taking areas away from Wayzata, moving them into Long Lake. And part of that discussion was to ask staff to start to have some conversations with these neighboring cities about re-looking at whether or not we're set up the best possible way. Part of what, because I believe that speed is critical, and I think it's very important to making sure that we provide the right level of service to the areas within Orono. And so where I think we're headed with that is to continue to have that conversation with the city of Wayzata. That being said, I haven't gotten an update in recent weeks about that, but I will certainly take a look into that and see what we can do. Something else to add to that is, as the fire department is set up, the new fire department is set up, and the structure of that new department is established, part of making sure that we provide the best service goes along with the operational model that you have. And so in the event that you have a duty crew that is at the department, it needs to be taken into account for how you provide service to the entire city of Orono, and ensuring that if it's moved to Wayzata and this operating model is stood up, are we still providing the best service to the folks on Chevy Chase, for example? Or, in fact, does the duty crew model change that ability to serve that area? So we're going to use some of that data, but I agree with you that time is of the essence, and it's going to be important. So there will be a follow-up to that with the city administrator. Yep.
Other questions or comments? Here we go. Got one first here.
Dave Pearson, 2160 Weber Hills Road. Mine is more of a request and not of you. The request is the citizens of Long Lake and Orono. I got involved in this fire process, not knowing anything about it like most of us, and it was very few of us that were really involved in the beginning. And we had gone to the city of Orono and asked for a forum, much like this, with no response. That started to get people wondering what the heck was going on. And over time, time being the election, it was obvious that a lot of us had come together up front or in the back, well, what am I trying to say? In other words, just in the background. That's a good word. And obviously we saw what happened. My request is, and I've been on the Long Lake Council. I was head of their planning commission, and I now live in Orono. My request is to the people of Long Lake and Orono. We asked for transparency. We asked for town hall meetings, which Long Lake provided. But the best way for these things to continue is you got to show up. I mean, we have a nice crowd here tonight, but in all honesty, this meeting this church should be full, in my opinion. You know, Orono is a big area, and Minnetonka, and you know, you shouldn't just get involved like in the beginning that I did, just because now I was mad and didn't know what was going on. Now that we have the transparency that we have, hopefully people aren't going to get mad. They're going to have ideas. But you got to be here. You got to play in the game if we want the community to go the direction that I think these two councils are headed. So please, when they call for a town hall, it's just not something to say, well, I'll read about it in the paper, or I'll go to the website or whatever. Be here, because that's how we stay the community that we're really headed for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Bash.
Hi, I'm Mike Bash. I live in Long Lake. Question for you. Great work. Thank you very much for both cities and councils for doing this. You talked about how the Joint Powers Board would work and its recommendations and being responsible for all that kind of stuff. However, you as city council members are elected to tax people, and you have the authority to tax people, not this board. How do you see it happening when the board says we want X amount of money, in good faith, right ideas, all that kind of stuff, and you in your role as city council members are then balancing that against police and roads and all this other stuff, and you think it's too much? Again, not a bad thing, just a different perspective that you have as elected officials. How are you going to balance what this board has that you've said run the place with your responsibility to tax people?
That's a great question. I'll take a swing at it, and I'll let my colleagues up here correct me if I say something wrong here. But the way this is set up, we will still retain authority to approve or disapprove the budget that's being presented to us every year. We will put a lot of faith in the persons that we select to represent us on the board. But ultimately, we have decision-making power over the budgets. And if the budgets are too high, don't fit in with the rest of our priorities, we'll go back to them and say, I'm sorry, we can't approve this budget. Try again. I'm hoping that never is the case, but it might be. And ultimately, until we go to a fire district, we will have the authority to say yes or no to those budgets. Not individual pieces of the budget, but the overall budget number. I think in the past there's been some issues with approving specific pieces of equipment. We're not going to do that. We're going to do an annual budget. We'll approve it or disapprove it, and ultimately we'll approve a budget.
Earlier, Charlie mentioned the Excelsior Fire District. That's not a district, it's a JPA among 5 cities, as Charlie said. And so they have a 5-person board. So this would not be unlike that. They have to bring their budget to each of those 5 cities for approval. And so I think it's just working together between the cities and the board to make sure that there's communication there. And I don't know that there's, maybe there's been some issue in approving the budgets. I haven't heard that in the Excelsior example, but I think that for public safety, you do not want to sacrifice on the financials. So as long as you know your board is doing a good job of budgeting, I would think that all the cities would approve that. But communication between the cities and the board is important.
I guess you guys getting all the old elected official, real old. It's really refreshing to see the commitment my fellow elected officials, I mean Jim White, Mike Bash, Lily McMillan, and you already met our councilwoman.
Could you just identify yourself, Mr. Jabor, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Gabriel Jabor, troublemaker extraordinaire. Special classification. We worked too hard to get here. We really did. And you guys know it better than anybody. And I'm here to show my gratitude and respect for all of you for doing that. Let's just start with doing that. You kind of snatch victories from the jaws of defeat, at 11th hour. But at the same time, the mission is about to start, and it's a long road down the path. I could tell you from my personal experience, 75 years of it so far, that nothing good happened without having partners. Partners in life, partners in social environment. And Orono was phenomenally beneficial from partners. And some of our elite residents made us who we are, not our elected official. The donation, the brand name that we had. And I seriously urge you not to delegate as we do in work. Most of us are CEOs and we delegate, except some of us work our tail off. The relationship between us and other cities around. Steve, I have utmost respect for you, regardless of the way I come across. I don't think staff should be handling it. Staff are, my observation, have moved from innovative to clerical. They're just like a switchboard operator. You call and they route you to the service provider. We need to rebuild those relationships. We need to take the animus out of our partners and neighbors' eyes, and we need to have them wish us the best and be there for us. And that's not going to happen by staff. Dick Flint, and I don't know if you remember Dick Flint, and the former council, when I quit, they had a succession plan, how we're going to keep the momentum. Our city we bought railroads, we bought islands. I say, I'm sure. And we had somebody from MIT come and tell us how we're going to do it. And we had this little pockets that the mayors go have a plan, the council. They came back saying, staff, city manager, and he said, no. A prince wants to talk to a prince. A king wants to talk to a king. We can't have this. It doesn't work too good. So I learned that from them, and we could rebuild it. So I'm really very concerned about the ability and the commitment, because it's obviously so far I found a lot, and I still feel it, a lot of contamination living in not only our community, in our city hall. Now, I would like to ask a question about the leadership. Are we sending mixed messages, or are we going to be very defined and very straightforward? Who's in charge, how many chiefs we're going to have, and where we're going? Because I heard that from a couple other fire departments down the street. Matter of fact, even when I went to pick up something in San Bonnie, I heard about it. Thank you for giving me more time than I deserve.
Brian Miller, 295 Lakeview Avenue in Long Lake. I want to elaborate on what Dave Pearson had to say. Back in 2022, it was just me at the Orono meetings, and Gabriel Jabor and Barbara, Jay, and Brad, of course, and stuff, and began to see the demise of the fire department. and I started reaching out to people. Dave Pearson was one of them, and I guess my point is, from there, everybody took off. Abby started showing up, Kim Carswell and Nancy and Kelly. It really took off. And the point is, to have a democracy, everybody has to participate. And that's what happened here. And I'm so glad that people like Jackie, Elisa, oh my God, I screwed that up. Oh my God. Steve Persian, Bob Thunheim, all stepped up and won in a landslide. And I think what you guys have come up with is perfect. Well, okay, not perfect, but I totally trust that you guys will guide us on the right path. And my signs always used to say, not elected to do whatever you want, but in this case, I trust you guys. Go ahead, do whatever you want.
Thank you, Brian.
Anybody else?
Hi, Kelly Grady. I live in Long Lake. If you know me, you know I've said everything that could have been said, but I haven't said thank you. So I appreciate very much this forum. I appreciate very much the two cities coming together, and I am really grateful for a bright future for public safety, for our firefighters, and just thank you all for working so hard.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else? All right. Well, and yeah, just to, we saw a lot of people come up, and we need to thank the community as well. Like, that's what got us to where we are today. 10 people on the city council and our staff can't do all this, so it took the community to come together to make this night possible. We're all up here trying to figure this out and plan out a course for the future. So, we'd like to thank all of you who are in this room and watching at home who played a role in that. And you should pay attention to what's going on in your communities, whether it's fire, whether it's, taxes, whether it's, roads. I talked to a resident today about, the road improvement in front of her house. And, there's all sorts of things. You need to pay attention to what's going on in your own backyard here, so that you can help, keep us sort of on task for what we're supposed to be doing and serving when it comes to serving all of you. Next slide, maybe. Or did you want to see? And then we'll yell. Okay. Well, isn't there one about feedback, maybe? Or not? Okay. Okay. We had this. Because I went past it. All right. We had this terrific slide about feedback, and for those of you that are not here today and want to provide us feedback, or maybe you are here today and you want to provide us feedback, there's a page on the City of Orono website that is dedicated for that. I'm sure you can find it by going to the Orono website, and I saw a tab on the left side, I think Fire Forum Feedback or something like that. Fill it out, and that'll be forwarded to both city councils, so we can take your thoughts into consideration as we move forward here. So please do that. And any last thoughts from anyone else?
I just want to thank everybody for coming. It is an important issue, and it's more than anything, it's important to come together as a community and realize we have shared goals, and we're not a community that ends at our borders. It's broader than that, and it's not just Orono Long Lake. It's Minnetonka Beach. It's Medina. It's Mound, it's Wayzata, it's Maple Plain. We are one big community, and the sooner we start acting like that, the better off we'll be, as we all have the shared interest, I think, in living in a good community. So it really is wonderful to see all of you here. And as a brief public service announcement, it is 23-7. Wolves are ahead with 2 minutes left in the first quarter. Thank you all.